I sat alone at the Azure Wave, the kind of upscale restaurant where the lighting is soft, the wine list is thicker than a novel, and the silence at a table for 7 screams louder than any argument. 6 empty chairs stared back at me, each one a ghost of someone I'd called family. My phone buzzed and I glanced down, hoping for an apology, an explanation, anything. Instead, it was Eleanor's text, cold as the untouched breadbasket. "You're not our priority right now." My chest tightened, but I forced a smile for the waiter hovering nearby, his pity barely veiled. I ordered a $200 0-cents bottle of Pinot Noir, not because I wanted it, but because I needed to look like I belonged here, not like some fool stood up by her own blood. The bottle arrived, and I poured a generous glass, the ruby liquid catching the chandelier's glow. My phone lit up again. Sophie's ex-post. A photo of her, Ethan, and the rest of them, grinning at some backyard barbecue, Ethan's wrist flashing a new Rolex. The caption, "Family first, always. Blessed." My grip on the stemware tightened. I'd wired Ethan $5,000, 0 cents for his last startup, a vaporware app that tanked in 6 months. I'd paid Eleanor's utilities for 2 years after Dad died, when she swore she'd get back on her feet. I scrolled X to avoid the eyes of the couple at the next table, their whispers slicing through me. My heart sank lower with every swipe, but I kept my chin up, sipping wine that tasted like regret. The restaurant's hum faded as I remembered the late nights balancing their books. Dad's death 5 years ago left me as the family's unofficial ATM. I opened my banking app, the numbers glaring. $82,410, 37 cents in transfers to them over the years. Every digit was a choice I'd made, to keep the peace, to hold us together. I thought it was love. Now, it felt like a leash. I paid the bill, left the half-empty bottle, and drove home, the city lights blurring through tears I refused to let fall. In my apartment, I sat in the dark, Eleanor's text glowing on my phone like a taunt. I opened my laptop, pulling up the spreadsheet I'd kept for 5 years. Every loan, every emergency payment, every time I'd said yes when I wanted to scream no. The total mocked me. I stared at the auto-pay for Eleanor's mortgage, my finger hovering over cancel. My pulse raced. I clicked it. Done. It wasn't enough. I grabbed my keys, drove to Eleanor's house at midnight, the streets empty except for my resolve. I scribbled a post-it. Let him handle it now. My pen hesitated, then added, "You never taught me to care for myself." I stuck it to her front door, the adhesive sealing my rebellion. I drove off, adrenaline buzzing, knowing I'd just lit a match. By morning, my phone was a war zone. 42 missed calls. Eleanor's voicemail dripped with indignation. "This is not how family behaves." Ethan's was smug. "You're making Mom freak out." Sophie's cut deepest. "Grow up, you're not a martyr." I texted Liam, my only ally, the cousin who'd always seen through the family charade. "I'm not spiraling. I'm standing still." His reply was instant. "Proud of you, for real." But the fallout was just beginning. At work, I learned Ethan had pitched my biggest client using intel he'd stolen from my laptop during a family dinner. I texted him demanding answers. He deflected, called me paranoid. Then Sophie escalated. She leaked my number on X, and my phone erupted with harassment. Cruel DMs, fake pizza orders, voicemails calling me a selfish bitch. I deleted the app, but the damage was done. Driving home that night, I noticed a black SUV tailing me. My palms sweated as I swerved into a parking garage, hiding until it passed. Paranoia? Maybe. But then I found the bank notice buried in my inbox, a $50,000 0-cents loan in my name, forged by Eleanor. The bank was threatening to freeze my accounts. My stomach dropped. This wasn't just betrayal. It was sabotage. The tech gala was my breaking point. I'd spent weeks preparing. my shot at a promotion hanging on it. Ethan crashed it, drunk and loud, accusing me of betraying the family. His outburst went viral, ex-posts painting me as the villain. My reputation, my career, everything I'd built, teetered. Back at the office, my CEO cornered me, demanding I fire a team member to cut costs. I pushed back, knowing it could cost me everything. I stood in my apartment that night, the city's pulse thumping through the walls. The spreadsheet glowed on my screen, a map of every sacrifice. I wasn't just fighting for my money or my job. I was fighting for me, the Claire I'd buried under their demands. And I was done losing. The azure wave's chandelier light felt like a spotlight on my solitude, each empty chair a silent accusation. I'd reserved the table weeks ago, picturing a night of laughter, a family finally seeing me as more than a checkbook. Instead, I was sipping overpriced wine, pretending I didn't notice the waiter's second glance or the couple at the next table whispering. My phone buzzed again, and I braced myself. Another ex-post from Sophie, this one a video. Ethan popping champagne, Eleanor clapping, the whole family toasting his big win. No mention of me, no hint I existed. I poured another glass, the Pinot's sharpness cutting through the lump in my throat. 5 years ago, when Dad's heart gave out, I'd stepped up. I was 28, fresh out of grad school, my tech job barely covering my rent. But I'd paid for Ethan's startup, $5,000, 0 cents I'd saved for a car. I'd covered Eleanor's utilities, her sobs over the phone echoing in my ears. Just until I'm steady, she'd promised. 2 years later, she was still calling and I was still paying. I thought I was helping. I thought it was what daughters did. The restaurant's clink of glasses and low chatter faded as I opened my banking app. The transfers to them, $82,410.37, felt like a punch. Every emergency payment, every just this once, stacked into a tower of my own making. I'd funded their lives while mine shrank to fit the gaps. I scrolled X, desperate to look busy, but Sophie's post looped in my mind. That Rolex on Ethan's wrist? I could have bought a used car with what it cost. Instead, I'd bought his ego. Paid the bill, $247.00 with tip, and left the bottle behind. The drive home was a blur, streetlights smearing like tears I wouldn't let fall. In my apartment, I didn't bother with the lights. Eleanor's text, "You're not our priority right now," burned behind my eyes. I opened my laptop, the spreadsheet loading like a confession. 5 years of family support meticulously tracked. $12,000, 0 cents for Ethan's startup. $24,000, 0 cents for Eleanor's bills. $9,000, 0 cents for Sophie's medical expenses that suspiciously aligned with her Coachella trips. The total was a life I could have lived. My finger hovered over the mortgage autopay for Eleanor's house. Every month, $1,200, 0 cents, drained from my account to keep her roof over her head. I'd never missed a payment, never questioned it. Until now. My heart pounded as I clicked cancel. The confirmation popped up, and for the first time in years, I felt light. But it wasn't enough. I needed her to know. I grabbed my keys, drove to her house, the midnight air sharp through my cracked window. Her street was quiet, the kind of suburban calm that hid secrets. I scribbled the post, my handwriting shaky but sure. Let him handle it now. I paused, then added, "You never taught me to care for myself." I stuck it to her door, the act final, like signing my name to a declaration of war. I drove off, my pulse a drumbeat, knowing there'd be hell to pay. Morning brought the storm. My phone was a battlefield. 42 missed calls, voicemails piling up like shrapnel. Eleanor's voice was ice. "This is not how family behaves." Ethan's was all bravado. "You're making Mom freak out." Sophie's was a knife. Grow up, you're not a murder. I listened to each one, letting their words sink in. They weren't sorry, they were scared. Scared I'd finally stopped playing their game. I texted Liam, the only one who'd ever called them out. I'm not spiraling, I'm standing still. His reply was a lifeline. Proud of you, for real. I clung to it, because the day was about to get uglier. At work, my assistant flagged an email from my biggest client. They'd gotten a pitch from Ethan, using data he could have only gotten from my laptop. I remembered that family dinner last month, him lingering in my home office. I texted him, "You stole my work, explain." His reply was pure gaslighting. Paranoid much? It's just business. Then Sophie upped the ante. She leaked my number on X, her post framing me as the selfish sister who'd abandoned her family. The harassment was instant. DMs calling me a traitor, a bot ordering 20 pizzas to my address, voicemails hissing venom. I deleted X, but the notifications kept coming, each one a reminder of how far they'd go to punish me. Driving home, I noticed the black SUV. It followed me through 3 turns, too close for coincidence. My hands shook as I pulled into a parking garage, cutting my lights and waiting. 10 minutes later, it cruised past, slow, like it was searching. I told myself it was nothing, but my gut screamed otherwise. When I got home, I found the bank notice, a $50,000 0-cents loan in my name, forged by Eleanor. The bank's email was blunt: pay or lose everything. I sat on my couch, the spreadsheet open, the numbers blurring. This wasn't just greed. This was destruction. The tech gala was my last shot to salvage my career. I'd spent weeks preparing, my presentation polished, my promotion on the line. I walked in, head high, ignoring the whispers about Ethan's ex-posts. Then he showed up, reeking of whiskey, his voice carrying across the ballroom. "You think you're better than us?" he shouted, pointing at me. "You're nothing without family." Heads turned, phones came out, and by morning the clip was everywhere. Tech Gala meltdown trending, my name dragged through the mud. Back at the office, my CEO called me in. "Fire someone," he said. "Costs are up, headcount's down." I thought of my team, their late nights, their trust in me. I pushed back. "We can find another way." His eyes narrowed. "Don't test me, Claire." I left his office, my promotion slipping through my fingers, but my spine straight. That night, I stood in my apartment, the city's hum a reminder I was still here. The spreadsheet glowed, a ledger of my past. I wasn't just fighting for my money or my job. I was fighting for the Claire I'd lost, the one who'd believed in family, who'd given until it broke her. I closed the laptop, my reflection in the screen sharp and clear. I was done losing, and I was just getting started. I woke to my phone buzzing like a hornet's nest, the screen flashing Sophie's name. Her text was a gut punch. $10,000, 0 cents, or I release a doctored video of you trashing the family at the gala. Your call. My vision blurred, chest tightening until I couldn't breathe. The room spun, and I hit the floor, gasping. Next thing I knew, paramedics were wheeling me into the ER, monitors beeping, a doctor's voice cutting through the fog. "Chronic stress is killing you. Your heart's at risk if you don't stop this cycle." I lay there, IV dripping, wondering how I'd let it come to this. Discharged with a warning and a prescription, I checked my phone. Liam's message was waiting. "Stop paying my debt, Claire. I mean it, or I'm done." My only ally, threatening to walk away. I wanted to scream, but the hospital's sterile hum swallowed it. Back home, I dug into Ethan's latest scheme, his crypto startup, all flash and no substance. A contact at the SEC tipped me off. It was a scam, and my name was on the loan documents tying me to a federal investigation. My stomach dropped. I'd been funding a con, and now I was the fall guy. I hired a lawyer, draining my savings for a retainer. She was blunt. "Clearing your name won't be cheap or quick." I nodded, signing the contract, my hands steady despite the chaos. That night, a burner email pinged. An anonymous tip about Ethan's dealings, shady wire transfers and offshore accounts. Another followed, hinting at Frank, my dad's old accountant, borrowing from Dad's estate. Frank, who'd always been a rock, swearing he'd never betray us. I wanted to trust him, but doubt gnawed at me. Was anyone in my life who they seemed? Eleanor showed up at my apartment unannounced, clutching a faded childhood photo of us at the beach. Me 5, grinning, her holding my hand. "Claire, please," she said, voice cracking. "Save the house, it's all I have." I stared at her, the photo trembling in her grip. "No," I said, the word heavy but final. "You celebrated Ethan with my money and didn't care." Her eyes widened, but I wasn't done. "You didn't realize my burden because you didn't want to." She admitted it, voice small. "I didn't see it." I shook my head. "You chose not to." She left, no apology, just the photo on my counter like a relic of a lie. The bank called an hour later. Eleanor had listed me as the financial contact for her debts. "I'm no longer responsible," I said, my voice steel. I closed the shared mortgage account for good, the confirmation email a quiet victory. But victory felt hollow when I saw Ethan's motorcycle parked outside my building, him pacing the sidewalk, eyes locked on my window. I watched from behind the curtain, heart pounding, refusing to let him in. He didn't knock, just stood there, a shadow of menace. Was he desperate or dangerous? I couldn't tell anymore. I booked a solo trip to Lisbon, impulse buying a leather jacket that felt like armor. I signed up for a writing workshop, dusting off the novel I'd abandoned when Dad died. The family group chat exploded. Accusations, guilt trips, Sophie's threats about the video. I muted it, their voices fading to static. Frank texted out of the blue, "You were never the weak one, just too generous." I wanted to believe him, but then I found it. A paper trail in Dad's old files, showing a missing trust fund, $200,000, 0 cents gone. The signatures pointed to Eleanor. Maybe Ethan. My blood ran cold. They hadn't just used me. They'd robbed me before I'd even started. The post-it note I'd left on Eleanor's door went viral on X, sparking debates about family and duty. Strangers called me a hero, others a traitor. I didn't care. I started a document titled "What I Owe Myself," pouring my truth into it. Every sacrifice, every betrayal, every moment I'd chosen them over me. I wrote about the $82,410.37, the forged loan, Ethan's scam, Sophie's blackmail. I wrote about the SUV tailing me, the panic attack, the doctor's warning. I wrote until my fingers ached, until I felt whole. Then the burner email pinged again. "Check Ethan's laptop. Now." My lawyer had warned me to stay clear, but I couldn't. I knew Ethan was crashing at Sophie's, so I drove there, heart in my throat. The house was dark, but I'd kept a spare key from when I'd bailed Sophie out last year. I slipped in, found his laptop, and hacked his password. His arrogance made it easy, the same one he'd used for years. The files were a gold mine, fake investor reports, forged signatures, my name on every document. I copied everything to a USB, my hands shaking, knowing this could end him. Or me. As I left, headlights swept the street. The black SUV, I ducked behind a hedge, pulse racing as it idled outside. Ethan's voice carried from the porch. He was on the phone, laughing. "She'll crack soon, trust me." The SUV drove off, and I ran to my car, the USB burning in my pocket. Back home, I sent the files to my lawyer, then poured a cup of tea, the steam curling like a promise. I opened my document, kept writing, each word a brick in the wall I was building around myself. The next morning, my lawyer called. The evidence was enough to bury Ethan, but the investigation would drag me through the mud, too. "You ready for this?" she asked. I looked at the childhood photo on my counter, then tossed it in the trash. Yes, I said. I wasn't just fighting for my name. I was fighting for my life. The tea was still warm, my laptop open, the words flowing. For the first time, I belonged to myself and no one could take that away. I sat at my desk, the tea long cold, its steam a faint memory against the glow of my laptop. The document, what I owe myself, sprawled across the screen, no longer just a list but a reckoning, each word a chisel carving me free from the weight of their betrayal. The USB rested beside me, small but heavy, its contents a guillotine poised over Ethan's. Lies, fake investor reports, forged signatures, my name tangled in his scam. One email to my lawyer, and it could all end. Or it could pull me into the abyss with him, my reputation shredded in the crossfire of his downfall. I didn't know which scared me more, losing everything or letting him win. Outside, the city's pulse thrummed through the walls. Car horns, distant laughter, the relentless march of a world that didn't care about my war. But this wasn't about the world. It wasn't even about Eleanor's tear-streaked pleas, Sophie's venomous threats, or the $82,410.37 I'd poured into their lives. It was about me, the Claire who'd sat alone at the Azure Wave, masking humiliation with a $200.00 bottle of wine. The Claire who'd driven to Eleanor's house at midnight, leaving a post-it that screamed what I'd never dared say aloud. You never taught me to care for myself. That Claire was done begging for their love. I thought of Lisbon, the trip I'd booked on impulse, the leather jacket hanging in my closet like a promise of reinvention. I thought of the writing workshop, my novel stirring after years of neglect, its pages a world where I could be whole. I thought of Frank's text, "You were never the weak one, just too generous," and the missing trust fund, $200,000 vanished. With Eleanor's or Ethan's fingerprints all over it, the burner emails, the black SUV, Ethan pacing outside my apartment. They circled like vultures, but I wasn't prey anymore. My phone buzzed, the family group chat still raging despite my mute. I didn't read it. Their voices. Eleanor's guilt trips, Sophie's cruelty, Ethan's deflections were noise now, not truth. The viral X post about my post-it note had split the internet. Half called me a warrior, half a selfish daughter. Let them argue. I wasn't here to be their symbol or their scapegoat. I was here to rebuild what they'd taken, not just the money, but the years, the dreams, the belief that I was enough. I typed one last line. I am enough. The words stared back, simple but seismic, a vow I'd never break again. I hit save, the click of the keyboard, a gavel's fall. The USB glinted under the lamp, and I knew what came next. Sending it to my lawyer, facing the investigation, risking it all. But for the first time, the risk didn't paralyze me. It fueled me. I closed the laptop, the screen's glow fading like a curtain on my old. I stood, grabbed the leather jacket, and slipped it on, its weight grounding me. The city waited beyond my door, vast and unyielding, but so was I. I stepped into the unknown, my heart steady, my future no longer theirs to define.